Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions will come to order for this hearing on protecting patients from defective medical devices. More than 30 years ago, Senator Kennedy championed the medical device amendments, a bill that gave the Food and Drug Administration long overdue authority to regulate medical devices. In support of that bill, Senator Kennedy said at the time, I quote, "Today the medical device industry plays a prominent role at the very heart of American medicine. Many devices today are actually used to sustain life. We will grow more and more dependent upon medical devices in the future. We stand to benefit a great deal from them, but we must be sure that they are safe and effective in order to avoid needless injury and death." End quote. Well, today this committee will hear testimony on precisely the issue that Senator Kennedy sought to address, the need to ensure that the medical devices that patients rely on to stay healthy and in many cases alive are safe and effective. We are here because last year in a Supreme Court case, Regal versus Medtronic, Inc., the court held that the medical device amendments, a statute whose explicit purpose was, and again quote, to provide for the safety and effectiveness of medical devices, end quote, the court said that this law preempts state tort claims when a medical device causes harm. This means complete immunity from lawsuits for corporations that endanger consumers with unsafe devices. The upshot is that a negligent corporation could not be held accountable, and victims could not receive fair compensation, and thus consumers are at risk. Unfortunately, this has had catastrophic consequences for ordinary Americans. Take the example of Avery DeGrow of McHenry, Illinois. She was born with an hereditary heart defect that put her at risk for arrhythmia. When she was only 2 years old, her doctor recommended that as a precaution, she have a defibrillator implanted in her chest. At age 3, she was playing in her basement when the defibrillator shocked her 9 times. When her mother picked her up, she felt electric shocks through her daughter's body. Avery's parents had the faulty defibrillator replaced, but Medtronic told them that the company would not cover the cost. Avery's parents are still struggling to pay off the medical bills, and I'm told that Avery is here in the audience today. Is Avery here today? Hi, Avery. Good to see you. I like the thing that daisy you got in your hair, by the way. All right. Or consider Judd Orcutt of Oregon. During his National Guard service, where he earned the Army Commendation Medal, he sustained a spinal cord injury. In an effort to reduce pain, he had his herniated disc replaced with an artificial Charite disc. I hope I pronounced that right. Manufactured by Dupuis Spine. Instead of experiencing relief from the artificial disc, Judd, like hundreds of others, experienced extreme pain and bouts of paralysis. However, because of the court's ruling in Regal, Judd has no recourse to seek remedies for his injuries. And today we'll hear from an Iowan, Michael Mulvihill, who received 22 electric shocks within a span of 53 minutes from a faulty Medtronic defibrillator. Because of the faulty device, he suffered enormous pain, was forced into early retirement, and is unable to perform basic functions such as even driving on the interstate, and we'll be hearing him testify here today. As a senior member of this committee, I've worked hard, along with others here, Senator Hatch and others, to ensure that the FDA performs its job well. While the FDA approval of medical devices is important, it cannot be the sole protection for consumers. I say that because FDA approval, as we'll hear today, is simply inadequate to replace the long-standing safety incentives and consumer protections provided by long-standing state tort law. No matter how diligently and effectively the FDA does its job, it simply cannot guarantee that no defective, dangerous, and deadly medical device will reach consumers. As the former director of the FDA's Center for Devices and Radiological Health frankly acknowledged, he said, quote, "The FDA's system of approving devices isn't perfect, and unexpected problems do arise." Last year, 15 devices were recalled due to defects. In 2009, there have already been 10. The fact is the FDA conducts the approval process with minimal resources and simply does not have adequate funds to genuinely ensure that devices are safe or to properly and effectively reevaluate approvals as new information becomes available. Moreover, the FDA relies on manufacturers to provide information about their products. Once on the market, the FDA relies on manufacturers to track devices and monitor for problems. However, without the threat of any liability, there is little incentive for manufacturers to report problems to the FDA or to the public. This puts thousands of consumers at risk of harm. Indeed, thousands have already been harmed in instances where manufacturers knew of problems with the device but withheld that information from the patients. In our system of justice, access to the court system is critical to exposing dangers and bringing about remedies. Through discovery, litigation can help uncover previously unavailable information on adverse effects of products that might not have been caught during the regulatory process. Litigants can demand documents and information on product risks that might not have been shared with the FDA. In this way, the public as a whole is alerted to dangers in these medical products. Finally, preserving people's ability to sue when injured provides a very powerful incentive to manufacturers to use the utmost care. In short, the threat of liability is the safety net that helps repair problems when the FDA or manufacturers fail to warn consumers properly. As the Supreme Court noted in another case concerning drug companies, that's the Wyeth v. Levine case, quote, "State tort suits uncover unknown drug hazards and provide incentives for drug manufacturers to disclose safety risks promptly." I ask, why would we not hold device manufacturers to that same standards as we hold drug companies? I think, sadly, the Supreme Court fundamentally misread Congress's intent in passing the medical device amendments in 1976. The Court's ruling, however, is not the final say on this matter. And to quote Chief Justice Roberts, "In every area involving an interpretation of a statute, the final say is not with the Supreme Court. The final say is with Congress. And if they don't like the Supreme Court's interpretation of it, they can change it," end quote. And I might just add parenthetically aside, we found that with the Americans with Disabilities Act, when the Supreme Court in 3 cases narrowed the scope of the Americans with Disabilities Act in clear contradiction of what we had put in our report language. You know, when we pass a bill, we don't put in every little single thing. We add report language to try to give guidance as to what Congress's intent is. Well, the Supreme Court just threw that overboard. They didn't pay attention to it. And so we had to offer the Americans with Disabilities Act amendments 2 years ago. It took us about a year to get them through, and they got through last year, and President Bush signed them into law, which we then overturned the Supreme Court's decisions to fully enlighten them as to what Congress really wanted to do. So this is something that is not unheard of. Senator Kennedy, as he did 30 years ago, is fighting to ensure that consumers are safe. He has introduced the Medical Device Safety Act, S.R. 512, which would reverse the Regal decision. This bill is really about real people who have been let down, sometimes catastrophically. Right now, they have no access to justice and no ability to hold those who cause them harm accountable. And with that, I would yield to our ranking member, Senator Hatch.